Alien girl's reproductive organ has tentacles and moves like an octopus. Case worth studying. Ryan Blackwood had seen some weird shit in his career as a xenobiologist for the Terran Exploration Corps. So 12 years of cataloging the galaxy's strangest life forms had left him with the firm belief that nothing could surprise him anymore. Three-headed carnivorous plants that sang opera, documented, gaseous entities that communicated through controlled flatulence, studied and classified, sentient rocks that reproduced by splitting themselves with hammers, and he'd written the damn paper. But today, in the sterile confines of Research Station Alpha 9, orbiting the gas giant Helios, Ryan found himself utterly speechless. "Holy fucking hell," he muttered, staring at the holographic display hovering above the diagnostic table. The alien woman lying beneath the scanner, who had introduced herself as Mira, raised a delicate silver eyebrow. Her vibrant red skin contrasted sharply with her flowing silver-white hair that cascaded around her shoulders like liquid mercury. She wore only the standard-issue white medical undergarments, revealing a physique that was disturbingly human-like in most respects. Most respects? "Is there a problem, Doctor?" "Blackwood?" she asked, her voice melodic and calm, as if they were discussing the weather and not the anatomical impossibility currently displayed in high definition above her. Ryan ran a hand through his chestnut hair, the stubble on his jaw scratching against his palm as he tried to compose himself. The fitted green t-shirt he wore suddenly felt too tight across his chest as sweat beaded on his forehead. No problem," he lied, eyes fixed on the scan. "Just unexpected findings." What the scan showed was beyond unexpected. It was revolutionary. Mira's reproductive system appeared to have a consciousness of its own, a complex network of tentacle-like appendages that moved independently, almost like a separate organism living within her. As he watched, the tentacles shifted position, seeming to orient themselves toward him, almost like they were studying him. "You seem disturbed," Mira observed, her golden eyes fixed on his face with unnerving intensity. "Is my anatomy so different from what you expected?" Ryan swallowed hard. "Different doesn't begin to cover it. Your reproductive system appears to be semi-autonomous. It's moving independently of your conscious control." A small smile played at the corners of Mira's full lips. "And this concerns you." "Concerns isn't the word I'd use. Fascinates, terrifies, confounds. Those are more accurate." He adjusted the scanner, zooming in on the tentacle-like structures. "These appendages, they're muscular, but also neural. They have their own network of ganglia, almost like a secondary brain." "Yes," Mira said simply, as if this were the most normal thing in the universe. Ryan's scientific curiosity began overriding his initial shock. The evolutionary advantage is unclear. Why would a species develop a reproductive system with its own neural network? What purpose does it serve? Mira sat up slightly, her silver hair falling forward over one shoulder. "Perhaps you're asking the wrong questions, Doctor." "Blackwood, what should I be asking?" Her golden eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Perhaps you should be asking why I've allowed you to examine me at all." A chill ran down Ryan's spine that had nothing to do with the station's environmental controls. He suddenly became acutely aware that he was alone in the lab with her, the rest of the research team having left for the day. The nearest security personnel were 2 levels away. "You requested the examination," he said carefully, taking a subtle step back from the table. "Did I?" Mira's smile widened, revealing teeth that were just a touch too sharp to be human. "Or did your superiors arrange this meeting because they were curious about rumors of my species?" Ryan's hand moved slowly toward the emergency call button on his wristband. "Who are you really, Mira?" "What are you?" The tentacles on the display writhed more vigorously, as if responding to her emotional state, or perhaps controlling it. "I am exactly what I appear to be," she said, swinging her legs over the side of the table with fluid grace. "A visitor from the Crimson Nebula, interested in cultural exchange. My people are called the Nari." "The Nari," Ryan repeated, the name unfamiliar. "We have no records of contact with your species." "Not officially, no." Mira stood, her movements smooth and predatory. But we've been watching humanity for some time. You're interesting to us. Ryan's back hit the lab counter. He hadn't realized he'd been retreating. Interesting how? Mira took a step toward him, and the air between them seemed to thicken with tension. Your species is so contradictory. Violent yet compassionate, destructive yet creative, primitive yet advancing so quickly. She tilted her head, studying him like a curious specimen, and so very, very adaptable. The scanner behind her continued to display the writhing tentacles within her, now moving with greater agitation. Ryan couldn't tear his eyes away from the display. "What do the Nari want with humans?" he asked, his mouth dry. Mira was close enough now that he could feel the heat radiating from her red skin. "That depends on what humans can offer us. Symbiosis can take many forms, Doctor." Blackwood. Symbiosis? Ryan's scientific mind raced through the implications. "You're looking for biological compatibility?" Her golden eyes flashed with something that might have been amusement. "Among other things, my reproductive system, as you call it, is not just for reproduction. It's for connection, understanding, communion." Ryan's heart hammered in his chest. "And you chose me for this communion?" "You were recommended," she said simply. "Your file suggests you're more open-minded than most, less likely to react with fear or disgust to biological differences." "Who recommended me?" Ryan demanded, his voice firmer now. Mira's smile faded slightly. "That's not important right now. What matters is whether you're willing to help us understand humanity better." She reached out, her fingers hovering just above his arm. "Whether you're willing to let us understand you?" Ryan stared at her, conflict raging within him. Professional curiosity warred with primal caution. This was the discovery of a lifetime, a new species with biology unlike anything recorded in human science. But every instinct screamed that he was in danger. Or was he? Mira had made no threatening moves. She'd submitted to examination willingly. If the Nari had wanted to harm humans, why announce themselves this way? "I need to report this to my superiors," he said finally. Mira's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, but consider what will happen then. I'll be quarantined, studied like a lab specimen. Our chance for mutual understanding will be lost in a flurry of protocols and paranoia." She wasn't wrong. Standard procedure for first contact with an unknown species was isolation in extensive testing, especially one with such unusual biology. "What exactly are you proposing?" Ryan asked. Mira's smile returned, warm and inviting. "A private exchange of information. You learn about my species, I learn about yours. No bureaucracy, no military intervention. Just two scientists exploring new frontiers." Ryan knew he should refuse. It violated every protocol in the book. But the scientist in him, the part that had driven him to the stars in the first place, was already considering the possibilities. "I need time to think," he said. "Of course," Mira replied, stepping back to give him space. "But don't take too long, Doctor. Blackwood, my presence here won't remain a secret forever." As if on cue, the lab door slid open, and Dr. Elias Chamberlain, the station's medical director, walked in, his attention focused on a datapad. "Ryan, I need those preliminary scans of our visitor for the..." He looked up, his sentence cutting off abruptly as he saw Mira standing there, the holographic display of her unusual anatomy still hovering in the air. "What the hell is that?" Elias asked, his eyes wide with shock. Ryan looked from Elias to Mira, whose expression had gone carefully neutral. The moment of decision had arrived sooner than expected. "That," Ryan said slowly, "is something I think we need to discuss in private, sir." The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. "What the..." Ryan heard Dr. Chamberlain's startled voice in the sudden darkness. The emergency backup generator should have kicked in immediately, but the lab remained pitch black. Ryan felt a surge of adrenaline as his training kicked in. "Elias, stay where you are," he called out, reaching for his wrist device to activate its emergency light. Before he could press the button, the floor beneath them shuddered violently. Ryan lost his balance, stumbling backward into what he thought was the lab counter. Instead, he felt warm skin. Mira. Her hand steadied him, surprisingly strong. "Something's wrong," she whispered, her breath hot against his ear. The emergency lights finally flickered on, bathing the lab in an eerie red glow. Ryan spun around, expecting to see Mira behind him, but she was gone. "Where did she go?" Dr. Chamberlain demanded, looking around frantically. "The alien woman, she was just here." Ryan stared at the empty space where Mira had stood seconds ago. "I don't know, she was right here." A sharp pain suddenly lanced through his right wrist. Ryan hissed, clutching at it as the burning sensation intensified. Pulling back his sleeve, he froze at what he saw, a small iridescent patch of skin that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. "Ryan, what's wrong?" Chamberlain approached, concern etched on his face. Ryan quickly pulled his sleeve down. Some instinct told him to keep this new development to himself. "Nothing. Just banked my arm when I fell." The station's PA system crackled to life. "Attention all personnel. We are experiencing a station-wide power fluctuation. Please remain at your stations until further notice. This is not a drill." Chamberlain ran a hand through his gray streaked hair. "I need to check on the medical bay. Will you be all right here?" "I'll be fine," Ryan assured him. "Go." As soon as Chamberlain left, Ryan examined his wrist again. The patch had grown slightly, now about the size of a coin. It resembled Mira's red skin, but with subtle patterns that shifted and changed as he watched. "What the hell did you do to me?" he muttered. "I had no choice," a voice answered in his mind. Ryan nearly jumped out of his skin. "Mira?" "Yes, I'm sorry for the intrusion, but there wasn't time to explain." "Where are you? And what is this thing on my wrist?" "I'm hiding. Your colleague's arrival complicated matters. The implant is a communication node. It allows me to speak with you telepathically." Ryan paced the lab, trying to process this new development. "You could have asked permission before attaching some alien tech to my body." "Would you have said yes?" The mental voice carried a hint of amusement. "That's not the point," Ryan argued, feeling ridiculous talking to an empty room. "You can't just—" "They're coming for me, Ryan." Mira's mental voice turned urgent. "Your people detected my ship entering your space. The power failure was them attempting to lock down the station." "Who's them?" "The military." "Yes, they know what I am. Or they think they do. They've encountered my kind before, but under different circumstances." Ryan looked at the implant again. It pulsed in time with his heartbeat, which was racing. "Are you controlling me with this thing?" Her mental voice softened. "It's a connection, not control. I can speak to you, sense your strong emotions, but nothing more. I needed someone who would listen before they judged." Despite his better judgment, Ryan found himself believing her. "What do you want from me? Help me leave the station before they find me? After that, I'll remove the implant and be on my way?" Ryan hesitated. Helping an alien evade human authorities was treason. But if Mira was telling the truth and the military had encountered her species before— "How do I know I can trust you?" "You don't. But I think you want to." She wasn't wrong. From the moment he'd seen her on that examination table, something about Mira had drawn him in. It wasn't just scientific curiosity. There was an attraction he couldn't explain, a pull that defied logic. The implant warmed against his skin, and suddenly Ryan was flooded with sensations that weren't his own. Fear, hope, and something else. A warm electric feeling when she thought of him. "Are those your emotions?" he asked, breathless. "Yes, the connection works both ways. I wanted you to know I'm not lying." The intimacy of it was overwhelming, feeling another being's emotions as if they were his own. It was invasive, yet strangely exhilarating. "Where are you hiding?" he asked finally. "Maintenance Shaft 7B, near the auxiliary life support systems." Ryan grabbed his tablet and lab coat. "Stay there, I'm coming to you." As he moved toward the door, the implant pulsed with what felt like gratitude and relief. But underneath was something else, a hunger that made his skin flush with heat. "Thank you, Ryan." The corridor outside was chaos, with personnel rushing to their emergency stations. No one paid attention to Ryan as he slipped into a service elevator. His mind raced with questions, but one thought dominated. What was he getting himself into? The implant warmed again, sending a pleasant tingle up his arm. This time, The sensation was unmistakably desire. Mira's desire flowing into him through their connection. "This is going to complicate things," he muttered to himself as the elevator descended. "Yes," came her reply, tinged with what felt like a smile. "But isn't that what makes life interesting?" The maintenance shaft was cramped and dimly lit, forcing Ryan to crouch as he made his way through the narrow passage. The implant on his wrist pulsed more intensely the further he went, like a compass guiding him to Mira. "You're close," her voice whispered in his mind. He rounded a corner and found her crouched beside a ventilation duct. In the low emergency lighting, her red skin looked almost black, but her silver hair gleamed like liquid metal. She wore a form-fitting black bodysuit now, not the medical garments from earlier. "You changed," Ryan said, immediately feeling foolish for stating the obvious. Mira's lips curved into a smile. "My examination attire wasn't suitable for an escape." She reached for his wrist, examining the implant. "It's bonding well with your tissue." "About that, we need to talk about consent and boundaries," Ryan said, trying to ignore the pleasant warmth that spread from her touch. "On Earth, we generally ask before attaching alien tech to someone's body." "There wasn't time," she replied, not sounding particularly apologetic. But I understand your concern. Human autonomy is fascinating." "Fascinating?" Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Is that not a concept for your species?" "The Nari view connection differently. We seek it out, cultivate it. The boundaries between individuals are more permeable." Her golden eyes studied him with open curiosity. "Your species builds walls. Ours builds bridges." Ryan was about to respond when the station's alarm system suddenly blared to life. "Attention all personnel. Security breach in Sector 7. Unknown biological entity detected. All non-essential personnel evacuate immediately." "They've detected my ship," Mira said, rising to her feet. "We need to hurry." "Your ship? It's here on the station." She nodded. "Docked in a maintenance bay. I disguised its signature, but the security sweep must have found it." Ryan followed her through a series of increasingly narrow passages, the implant guiding him when they separated briefly to avoid security patrols. Finally, they reached a small airlock that appeared to be used for external repairs. "In here," Mira said, placing her palm against the access panel. It shouldn't have responded to her touch, but the display flickered and the door slid open. Inside was not the expected maintenance area, but a sleek vessel about the size of a shuttlecraft. Its hull was a deep crimson, with organic curves that reminded Ryan of a sea creature. "Impressive," he said, running his hand along the smooth surface. "I've never seen anything like it." "It's a scout ship," Mira explained, pressing her palm to the hull. A seam appeared, widening into an entrance. "Come!" The interior was just as unusual as the exterior, more like a living space than a cockpit. Soft, pulsating lights illuminated surfaces that seemed to shift and change like living tissue. "Is this alive?" Ryan asked, hesitating at the threshold. "In a manner of speaking, Nari technology integrates biological components." Mira moved to what appeared to be the control center. "We should leave quickly." Ryan remained at the entrance. "Before I go any further, I need to know the truth. Why are you really here? What's your mission?" Mira paused, her back to him. The ship's interior lights pulsed in rhythm with the implant on his wrist. "I told you, cultural exchange." "Bullshit," Ryan said firmly. "The military doesn't mobilize for cultural exchanges, and you don't hide in maintenance shafts if your intentions are purely diplomatic." She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "You're right. My mission is more specific." She gestured to a transparent container near the ship's center. Inside were dozens of small vials, each containing different colored substances. "What are those?" "Genetic samples from various species across this sector of the galaxy." A cold feeling settled in Ryan's stomach. "Including humans?" "That was the plan." Mira stepped closer to him. "My people are researchers, Ryan. We study life in all its forms, especially reproductive biology." The implant warmed against his skin, and he felt a wave of emotions from her, scientific curiosity, but also something more personal. Desire, interest that went beyond mere research. "So I was just going to be another sample in your collection?" Ryan asked, anger rising despite the artificial warmth from the implant. No, Mira said quickly. Not just a sample. You're... She seemed to struggle for words. Different? Different how? She reached for his face, her fingers hovering just above his skin. Most species we study are primitive or simple. Humans are complex, contradictory. You feel fear and curiosity simultaneously. You're capable of both violence and compassion. Her eyes met his. You're the most fascinating species we've encountered in centuries. Ryan could feel her sincerity through their connection, but also her determination. And my genetic material? That's still part of your mission? Yes, she admitted, but not in the way you think. We don't clone or manipulate. We learn, understand. Your reproductive capabilities are particularly interesting. Because they are so different from yours, Ryan gestured to his own body. A smile played at Mira's lips. Yes, your method is inefficient, but it has other qualities that make up for that. Despite everything, Ryan felt himself responding to her proximity, to the undeniable attraction between them. The implant pulsed with shared desire, his and hers, it becoming difficult to distinguish. This connection between us, he said, his voice low, is it real, or is it the implant making me feel this way? Mira stepped closer, eliminating the space between them. The implant enhances what's already there. It doesn't create feelings that don't exist. Her hand finally made contact with his face, and the sensation was electric. Through their connection, Ryan felt her fascination with his skin, his warmth, the rough texture of his stubble. All new experiences for her. I need to know, he said, struggling to maintain focus as their shared arousal intensified. If we do this, if I help you, what happens to the samples? To humanity? Knowledge, she whispered. Just knowledge. My people have no interest in conquest. We seek understanding. Ryan wanted to believe her. The scientist in him understood the drive to know, to discover. And the man in him wanted her with an intensity that was becoming impossible to ignore. The station's alarm suddenly changed tone, becoming more urgent. They're getting closer, Mira said. We need to decide now. Ryan looked at the sample container, then back at Mira. In her eyes, he saw genuine curiosity about him, not just as a specimen, but as a person. The connection between them felt real, whatever its origin. If I help you, he said finally, I want to learn about your people too. Equal exchange, and I come with you, not as a sample, but as a partner in this research. Mira's eyes widened with surprise, then something like respect. You would leave your world? For the chance to study a new species up close? To be the first human to truly understand the Nari? Ryan smiled. That's worth the risk. The implant pulsed with what felt like joy, and something deeper that neither of them was ready to name. The journey to the Nari research vessel took 3 days. 3 days of Ryan and Mira in close quarters, their connection through the implant growing stronger by the hour. 3 days of learning each other's bodies through stolen touches and heated glances, neither quite ready to cross the final threshold despite their mutual desire. When they finally docked with the massive Nari vessel, a sprawling structure that resembled a giant coral reef more than a spaceship, Ryan was equal parts nervous and excited. Welcome to the Nexa, Mira said as the airlock cycled open. Our primary research hub in this sector. Ryan stepped through the doorway and froze. The interior was vast, with soaring ceilings and organic architecture that flowed like liquid. But what stopped him in his tracks were the people. Humans, at least 24 of them, moving freely among the red-skinned Nari. You didn't mention there were other humans here, he said, unable to keep the accusation from his voice. Mira touched his arm lightly. I wanted you to see for yourself. Would you have believed me? Probably not, Ryan had to admit. A tall gray-haired man in a lab coat approached them, his face breaking into a warm smile. You must be Dr. Blackwood, he said, extending his hand. I'm Thomas Harrington, former xenobiologist from Europa Station. Welcome to the most fascinating research opportunity in human history. Ryan shook his hand, noting the man's firm grip. How long have you been here? 12 years, Thomas replied. There are 37 of us now. Scientists mostly from various Earth outposts. All volunteers, Mira added quickly, sensing Ryan's concern. No one is held against their will. Thomas nodded. The Nari approached each of us individually. Like you, we were chosen for our open-mindedness and scientific curiosity. As they walked through the vessel, Ryan observed the interactions between humans and Nari. There was an easy camaraderie that suggested years of cooperation, but he also noticed something else, subtle differences in some of the humans. One woman had faint red patterns on her skin, similar to Mira's. A man's eyes had the same golden hue as the Nari. They've been modified, Ryan said quietly to Mira. Enhanced, Thomas corrected, overhearing. Some of us have chosen to accept certain Nari biological adaptations. It helps with the research, allows us to better understand their physiology. Ryan felt a surge of discomfort. I'm not interested in being enhanced. I came to study the Nari, not become one. Thomas raised his hands placatingly. Completely voluntary, I assure you. Many of us remain fully human. Mira led them to what appeared to be living quarters. You'll stay here, she said, showing Ryan a comfortable room with views of space through a large viewport. I'm just down the corridor. Thomas excused himself, leaving them alone. As soon as the door closed, Ryan turned to Mira. You should have told me about the others and the modifications. Would it have changed your decision? She asked, her golden eyes searching his. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. I don't know, maybe. I believe in studying other species, not becoming them. Through their connection, he felt her confusion. The modifications are minor, Ryan. They allow deeper understanding. Isn't that what science is about? Pushing boundaries? There are some boundaries that shouldn't be crossed, he insisted. Humanity is special. We've evolved over millions of years to be exactly what we are. I don't want to lose that. Mira moved closer, her expression thoughtful. What you call humanity, is it just your physical form or something more? The question caught him off guard. Both, I suppose. Our bodies and minds evolve together. Change one too much, and you risk losing what makes us human. Fascinating, she murmured. My people view the body as more adaptable, a vessel that can be improved. Their philosophical difference hung between them, but didn't diminish the attraction that had been building since they met. If anything, the tension between their viewpoints added another layer of intensity to their connection. Mira's hand found his, her fingers intertwining with his. Would you like to see my quarters? The implant pulsed with shared desire, making Ryan's breath catch. Yes. Her room was similar to his, but filled with objects he didn't recognize. Sculptures that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them, and plants with luminescent fronds that reached toward them as they entered. These respond to emotional states, Mira explained, noticing his interest in the plants. They're more vibrant than usual right now. Because of us? Ryan asked. She nodded, stepping closer. They sense our connection. The air between them seemed to thicken with tension. Ryan reached out, tracing the curve of her face with his fingertips. Her skin was warmer than a human's, with a texture like velvet. I've been thinking about this since I first saw you, he admitted. Mira's eyes darkened with desire. I know. I've felt it through our bond. Their first kiss was electric, literally. A small spark jumped between their lips as they met, making them both laugh softly. The second kiss was deeper, more exploratory. Through their connection, Ryan could feel Mira's fascination with the sensation, so different from Nari forms of intimacy. Your species expresses connection so physically, she whispered against his mouth. It's beautiful. How do the Nari express it? Ryan asked, his hands finding the curve of her waist. In answer, she guided his hand to the implant on his wrist. Through this, but never so completely as what we're about to share. What followed was a revelation for both of them, a joining of bodies that transcended their biological differences. For Ryan, it was both familiar and utterly new, enhanced by their mental connection that allowed him to experience Mira's pleasure alongside his own. For Mira, it was an introduction to human intimacy, raw and primal, in a way her species had evolved beyond. Afterward, lying together in the soft, living bed that conformed to their bodies, Ryan felt a contentment he'd never experienced before. That was, he began, unable to find adequate words. Yes, Mira agreed, her silver hair spread across his chest. I understand now why your species has preserved this method of connection despite its inefficiency. Ryan laughed. Inefficient, maybe, but worth it. Through their bond, he felt her agreement, and something deeper taking root between them, something neither had anticipated when this journey began. Ryan's first week aboard the Nexus was a whirlwind of discovery and tension. By day, he worked alongside Mira in the research labs, studying the unique reproductive biology of the Nari. By night, they explored each other with increasing intimacy, their connection deepening with each encounter. But not everything aboard the vessel was harmonious. The human contingent had quietly divided into two factions. The purists, who, like Ryan, believed in maintaining human biological integrity, and the integrationists, who had accepted various Nari modifications. The neural enhancement alone has doubled my cognitive processing, explained Dr. Diana Foster, a neurobiologist with subtle red markings along her temples. I can perceive patterns I never would have noticed before. Ryan nodded politely, but his discomfort must have shown on his face. You think we've compromised our humanity? Diana said, not a question but a statement. I think humanity isn't something that needs fixing, Ryan replied carefully. We've survived and thrived for thousands of years as we are. Survived, yes, but we could be so much more. Diana's eyes, now with flecks of Nari gold, studied him with scientific detachment. Your perspective is limiting. These interactions left Ryan feeling increasingly isolated until he met Dr. Stephen Chamberlain, no relation to Elias, a geneticist who shared his views on human biological preservation. Don't let them pressure you, Stephen told him over lunch in the communal dining area. The modifications start small, enhance vision, improve cellular regeneration, but they change you in ways you can't anticipate. How many of us are still unmodified? Ryan asked. 15 out of 37, Stephen replied, and our numbers are dwindling. The Nari don't force it, but the advantages are seductive. Ryan thought of Mira, of their nights together. Was their relationship another form of seduction, a way to bring him closer to accepting Nari perspectives? That evening, he confronted her in their now shared quarters. Are you trying to change me? He asked directly. Mira looked up from the data she was reviewing, her expression puzzled. Change you how? The implant, our connection, is it designed to make me more receptive to Nari modifications? Her confusion felt genuine through their bond. No, Ryan. The implant is for communication only. I would never alter you without consent. But you'd like to, he pressed. You think humans would be better with Nari enhancements? Mira set aside her work and approached him. I think humans are remarkable exactly as you are. Your adaptability, your resilience, these qualities develop naturally over millennia of evolution. Why would I want to change that? Through their connection, Ryan felt her sincerity and something else, admiration, not just for him personally, but for humanity as a species. Then why do so many of the other humans here have modifications? They asked for them, Mira said simply. Each for their own reasons, some for research, others for health benefits, all by choice. Ryan's tension eased slightly. And my choice to remain unmodified is respected, she assured him, taking his hands in hers. More than that, it's valuable. Your perspective as an unaltered human provides insights we couldn't gain otherwise. The next day, Ryan threw himself into his research with renewed focus. Using the Nexus's advanced imaging systems, he began mapping the neural pathways of the Nari reproductive system. Specifically, the tentacle-like structures that had so shocked him during his first scan of Mira. These aren't just reproductive organs, he explained to Thomas Harrington, who had become something of a mentor. They're sensory organs, communication tools, even emotional processors. Thomas nodded, impressed. That aligns with our earlier findings. But no one's mapped the neural pathways so thoroughly before. How did you isolate the signal patterns? I used human brainwave patterns as a comparison, Ryan explained, displaying a side-by-side hologram of human and Nari neural signatures. There are surprising similarities in the limbic regions, the emotional centers. Fascinating, Thomas murmured. This could explain the effectiveness of the implant technology. Ryan zoomed in on a particular cluster of neurons. More than that, I think humans have dormant neural structures that mirror Nari communication pathways. They're vestigial in us, but they exist. Thomas's eyes widened. Are you suggesting humans once had similar capabilities? Or the potential for them, Ryan clarified. Evolution takes many paths. What if humans and Nari share a distant evolutionary ancestor, or faced similar evolutionary pressures? The implications were staggering. If humans possess dormant neural structures similar to the Nari's reproductive communication system, it could revolutionize human understanding of their own biology and open new paths for connection without requiring biological modification. That evening, Ryan shared his findings with Mira in their quarters. Her reaction was unexpected. She laughed, a musical sound that filled the room. "What's so funny?" he asked, slightly offended. "Not funny, wonderful," she corrected, her eyes bright with excitement. "You've discovered in days what our researchers have been theorizing for years. This is why unmodified human perspective is so valuable, Ryan. You see connections we miss." Her pride in him flowed through their bond, warming him from within. As they celebrated his discovery with increasingly passionate embraces, Ryan realized something profound. Their relationship wasn't about changing each other, but about complementing each other's strengths. Later, as they lay entwined in the living bed that had become their shared space, Mira traced patterns on his chest with her fingers. "Your discovery will change things here," she said softly. "The integrationists have argued that modifications are necessary for true understanding between our species. You've shown another path is possible." Ryan pulled her closer. "A path where we remain who we are, but learn to connect anyway." "Yes," she agreed, "though I admit I'm particularly fond of your human methods of connection." Her teasing smile and the suggestive pulse from the implant made his body respond immediately, and they found themselves once again exploring the unique pleasures their different biologies could create together. In the afterglow, a new thought occurred to Ryan. If humans have these dormant neural pathways, could they be activated without physical modification? Through training or technology? Mira considered this. Perhaps it would require extensive research. "That's why I'm here," Ryan said with a grin. "To study alien reproductive organs that move like octopuses." Mira playfully swatted his arm. "A crude but not inaccurate description, though I prefer to think of it as an advanced neural reproductive network." "Doesn't have quite the same ring to it," Ryan teased, pulling her in for another kiss. 3 months of intensive research culminated in a device that looked deceptively simple, a silver circlet embedded with pulsing bioneural filaments. Ryan turned it over in his hands, hardly believing they'd actually done it. "The neural resonance amplifier," he announced to the small team gathered in the lab. "Non-invasive, temporary activation of the dormant neural pathways we all possess." Stephen Chamberlain whistled appreciatively. "You actually pulled it off." "We pulled it off," Ryan corrected, nodding to the team of purists and even a few sympathetic integrationists who had contributed to the project. "Though I still don't understand why the Nari leadership has been so supportive of research that essentially negates the need for their modifications." Thomas Harrington exchanged a glance with Mira, who stood quietly at the back of the lab. "Perhaps you should ask your partner about that." All eyes turned to Mira, whose expression remained carefully neutral. Through their bond, Ryan felt her uncharacteristic nervousness. "The prototype needs testing," she said, deflecting. "Who will be the first subject?" "I will," Ryan said without hesitation. "It's my research, my responsibility." The team dispersed to prepare for the test, leaving Ryan and Mira alone in the lab. He approached her, the circlet still in his hands. "You're hiding something," he said quietly. "I can feel it through our connection." Mira sighed, her golden eyes meeting his. "Yes, but it's not what you think. The Nari Council has expectations for this technology that go beyond what we've discussed." "What kind of expectations?" "It's better if I show you," she replied, "after the test. If it works as we hope, you'll understand everything." Ryan studied her face, finding no deception there. Only apprehension and hope. "You're not worried about the test. You're worried about what I'll discover when it works." She nodded, reaching out to touch his face. "Ryan, whatever happens today, remember that what we have is real. My feelings for you have never been part of any agenda." Her intensity concerned him, but the scientist in him couldn't resist the pull of discovery. "Let's do this." An hour later, Ryan lay on a diagnostic bed, similar to the one where he'd first examined Mira all those months ago. The circlet rested cool against his forehead as Thomas made final adjustments to the monitoring equipment. "The amplifier will stimulate your vestigial neural pathways gradually," Thomas explained. "You may experience unusual sensations as they activate. If anything feels wrong, we terminate immediately." Ryan nodded, his eyes finding the mirrors across the room. She smiled encouragingly, but he could feel her tension through their bond. Initiating neural resonance in 3, 2, 1. A gentle humming filled Ryan's ears as the circlet activated. At first, he felt nothing beyond a slight tingling at the base of his skull. Then slowly the sensation spread, not unpleasant, but alien. Like muscles he never knew he had were stretching for the first time. "Heart rate elevated but stable," Stephen reported. "Brain activity increasing in the limbic and frontal regions." The tingling intensified, becoming a warm current flowing through Ryan's nervous system. Colors seemed brighter, sounds clearer. He could feel the vibrations of the ship around him, the subtle movements of air as his colleagues breathed. "I can sense everything," he murmured, amazed. "It's like my awareness has expanded beyond my body." And then he felt it, a presence at the edge of his consciousness. Not Mira, something larger, more complex. A vast network of minds, all connected, all sharing thoughts and emotions and memories across an unfathomable distance. "Oh my God," he gasped. "There are others. So many others." Images flooded his mind. A planet with twin moons, oceans of liquid crystal, cities that grew rather than being built. The history of the Nari unfolded before him, not just their biology and culture, but their purpose. "You're terraformers," he said aloud, eyes wide with realization. "You transform worlds. Prepare them for something." Mira moved to his side, taking his hand. "Yes, we've been preparing worlds throughout this galaxy for millennia, including Earth." The truth crashed over Ryan like a wave. The dormant neural pathways in humans, they're not vestigial. They were planted, engineered into our ancestors. Through his enhanced perception, he could see the subtle nods of the other Nari in the room. Even some of the integrationists seemed unsurprised. "You knew?" he asked Thomas, who had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Not at first," the older scientist admitted. "But yes, those of us who've been here longer have been gradually introduced to the full scope of the Nari mission." Ryan turned to Mira, a mixture of betrayal and fascination warring within him. "Why? What's the purpose?" Her hand tightened around his. "Connection, Ryan. True, universal connection. Imagine a galaxy where all sentient species could communicate directly, mind to mind. No misunderstandings, no wars born of fear and ignorance. Just shared knowledge and experience." Through his enhanced perception, Ryan could see the beauty of this vision, but also its implications. "You've been guiding human evolution for how long?" 50,000 years, Mira said softly. "A mere moment in evolutionary terms. We accelerated what was already beginning in your species. Your capacity for empathy, for connection. The neural pathways were always there, just underdeveloped." Ryan sat up, removing the circlet despite protests from the research team. The expanded awareness receded, but didn't disappear entirely. The pathways, once awakened, remained partially active. "And the reproductive system, the tentacles?" he asked, remembering the scan that had started everything. Mira's lips curved in a slight smile. "Dual purpose. Reproduction, yes, but primarily for deep connection during mating. The pleasure you and I have shared is but a fraction of what's possible between fully connected beings." The thought sent a shiver of desire through Ryan, which Mira clearly felt through their bond. Her eyes darkened in response, and for a moment the lab and its revelations faded into the background as their mutual attraction surged. Thomas cleared his throat. "Perhaps you two should continue this discussion privately. The initial test was successful, but we have much data to analyze." Ryan nodded, still reeling from the revelations. As they left the lab, he felt the weight of what he'd learned pressing down on him. The Nari had been influencing humanity for millennia. guiding, shaping, preparing Earth for some grand design of galactic connection. Part of him was outraged at the presumption. Another part, the scientist, was awestruck by the scale and patience of their vision. But the man in him, the human who had fallen in love with Mira, had only one question as they reached their quarters. Was any of it real? He asked, his voice low. Us? This? Or was I just another experiment? Mira's answer would determine everything. Mira's golden eyes held Ryan's gaze unwavering. Yes, our meeting was orchestrated. I was sent to study you, to bring you here. Her hand reached for his, fingers intertwining. But what happened between us was never planned. The Nari Council is still trying to understand how our connection became so profound. Ryan felt the truth of her words through their bond, the implant now supplemented by his partially awakened neural pathways. Her emotions flowed into him, anxiety, hope, and something deeper that had grown between them over these months. I believe you, he said finally, but that doesn't change the fact that your people have been manipulating mine for millennia without our knowledge or consent. Not manipulating, Mira corrected gently, guiding, nurturing potential that was already there. Ryan paced their quarters, processing everything. That distinction might matter to you, but it won't to humanity. If this gets out the wrong way, there will be panic, maybe even war. Then help us find the right way, Mira urged. You understand both perspectives now. Ryan stopped pacing, a plan forming in his mind. I need to go back to Earth. Alarm flashed across Mira's face. To warn them about us? To prepare them, Ryan clarified. Humanity deserves to know the truth, but they also deserve the right to choose their own path forward. Over the next week, Ryan worked with both human factions aboard the Nexus to develop a proposal. The purists contributed their concerns about preserving human autonomy, while the integrationists shared insights from their experiences with Nari enhancements. Together, they crafted a vision for human-Nari relations based on transparency and choice. When Ryan presented their plan to the Nari Council, a group of 7 elders whose red skin had faded to deep burgundy with age, he stood tall, embodying the strength and adaptability that had drawn the Nari to humanity in the first place. Humanity will join your galactic network, he stated, but on our terms. The neural resonance amplifier will be offered to all humans, with complete disclosure about its origins and purpose. Each person will decide whether to activate their dormant pathways, temporarily or permanently. The eldest council member, her silver hair cascading to the floor, leaned forward. And if they choose not to, then that's their right, Ryan said firmly. Evolution isn't just about biological advancement, it's about cultural and ethical growth too. Forcing this change would violate the very connection you're trying to create. A murmur ran through the council. Ryan felt Mira's pride radiating through their bond as she stood beside him. Typical human stubbornness, one counselor muttered, though not unkindly. We prefer to call it self-determination, Ryan replied with a slight smile. The head counselor's eyes crinkled with what might have been amusement. Your species continues to surprise us, Doctor. Blackwood, we expected resistance, perhaps even hostility when the truth was revealed. Instead, you offer partnership with conditions. That's humanity for you, Ryan shrugged. Adaptable, but on our own terms. After hours of deliberation, the council accepted Ryan's proposal. He would return to Earth as an ambassador, working with a small team of humans and Nari to gradually introduce humanity to the truth of their cosmic heritage and future potential. The night before his departure, Ryan and Mira stood at the viewport in their quarters, Earth visible as a blue jewel against the blackness of space. Are you nervous? Mira asked, her body warm against his side. Terrified, Ryan admitted. I'm about to tell humanity that aliens have been tinkering with our DNA for 50,000 years. And oh, by the way, would you like to join a galactic telepathic network? Mira laughed, the sound still his favorite in the universe. When you put it that way, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. Too late now, Ryan said, turning to face her. The shuttle leaves tomorrow. Her expression grew serious. You know this won't be easy. Some humans will reject the very idea of Nari influence. Others will demand immediate access to all our technology. I know, that's why we start small, with the neural resonance amplifier. Let people experience the connection for themselves temporarily before making permanent decisions. Mira's fingers traced the line of his jaw. Your approach is so human, patient, yet determined. It's what drew me to you from the beginning. And here I thought it was my rugged good looks, Ryan teased. Those didn't hurt, she admitted with a playful smile that quickly faded. I'll miss you, Ryan pulled her close. Come with me. To Earth? The Council would never… The Council already approved it, Ryan interrupted. You're officially part of the diplomatic team, though I may have emphasized your scientific expertise rather than our personal relationship. Joy surged through their bond as Mira processed his words. You want me there? Even after everything? Especially after everything, Ryan said softly. Who better to help humanity understand the Nari than the woman who helped me understand them? Their lips met in a kiss that deepened quickly, the implant and Ryan's awakened neural pathways amplifying their connection. Every touch, every sensation echoed between them in waves of shared pleasure. Their bodies came together with the familiar rhythm they'd perfected over months of exploration, yet each time felt new as their mental connection grew stronger. Later, lying together in the afterglow, Ryan marveled at how far they'd come from that first startling scan in his lab. You know, when I first saw your reproductive system on that scanner, I thought I was hallucinating. Mira propped herself up on one elbow, silver hair cascading over her red shoulders. You look so shocked. It was adorable. Adorable wasn't what I was going for, Ryan grumbled good-naturedly. Professional, scientific, maybe a little intimidating. You were none of those things, she teased. You were utterly flustered. In my defense, I'd never seen reproductive organs that moved independently before. It was like watching an octopus doing ballet. Mira's laughter filled the room. An octopus doing ballet? That's how you describe the most sophisticated neural reproductive network in the galaxy? If the tentacle fits, Ryan grinned, pulling her down for another kiss. 6 months later, in a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Ryan stood before the assembled leaders of Earth's nations. Beside him, Mira waited calmly, her presence a steady anchor through their bond. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan began, what I'm about to tell you will change your understanding of human history and our place in the universe. But more importantly, it will open doors to humanity's greatest potential, a future where we join a galactic community while remaining uniquely, stubbornly, wonderfully human. As he spoke, Ryan felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but also the lightness of hope. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but humanity had never shied away from challenges. And if there was one thing he'd learned from his study of Mira's remarkable biology, it was that connection, whether between individuals or species, was worth every risk. Behind him, on a large screen, the first image appeared. The original scan of Mira's reproductive system, tentacles and all, alongside the title of the research project that had started everything. Humanoid Alien Reproductive Biology, Case Study in Interspecies Connection. Ryan smiled at Mira, then turned back to the assembled leaders. Let me tell you about the day I met the woman who changed everything.